And when people see that you're trying and that you're making a good effort, then you get a lot of good response back. I think the people that have problems are the ones that try and sneak around, or they're ashamed of what they do. I mean, we do a great job in this business. We create memories. We help people see a different part of the world and experience life. And I get really passionate about this because I really do live and breathe it.
This is episode number 98 of the Short-Term Rental Success Stories podcast. Are you an investor that's looking to have your home professionally managed? Go to cohostit.com for more information. Welcome back to Short-Term Rental Success Stories. I'm your host, Julian Sage. This is a show where I talk to hosts about their journeys in starting and growing their short-term rental business. My goal is that you'll be able to walk away with practical information that'll help you become a better host and learn how to scale your business. Like any exceptional host, we all strive for 5-star reviews, so please go on over to iTunes and let us know what you enjoy, as it really helps support the show. If you haven't done so already, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation, to connect with the community. Hey, what is going on, Host Nation? I'm super excited to be back again with you this week. Today, I had the special honor of speaking with Tracey Northcott, the founder of Tokyo Family Stays, a short-term rental management company in Tokyo, Japan. So my home country. This is really exciting for me. She has 15 units, which are a mix between master lease, managed, and owned. She's been operating this business now for about 10 years and really has been in Japan for around 21 years in total. So she has a lot of experience in Japan. And so in this episode, we actually talk about quite a few things. We talk about the ins and outs of running a business, not just in Japan, but just in a foreign country in general, and how you can build your short-term rental business, maybe if you aren't local or even if you don't speak the native language, and how you can go about doing that, the appropriate steps that you should be taking. We also talk about the regulations, how to deal with legal if you don't know how to speak the language, how to build trust in a community, because that is very important. You know, if you are, maybe from the US or from some other country and you're going into a place that isn't your primary, where you don't know how things operate, you need to be able to assimilate into the community. So we definitely talk about that. We also talk about the importance of branding and how it helped her grow her business exponentially, because before she was doing a bunch of different things, when she was able to focus in on her branding and her target guest, how that was actually able to help her grow her business, as well as pivoting her business when a country such as Japan, it being an island, gets shut down. We don't expect these types of things to happen in the future, another black swan event, but we never know. There could be some other type of events that could occur. But this is just really great advice in general on how to be able to pivot your business in a foreign country when travel gets locked down. So, of course, if you like my show notes for this episode, go to shorttermsage.com/STR98. Or if you like my show notes sent directly to your inbox every week, go to shorttermsage.com/show notes. With all that being said, on to this week's conversation. Hey, welcome back, Host Nation, to another episode of Short-Term Rental Success Stories. In this episode, I have the special honor of speaking with Tracey Northcott. Tracey, if you please wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the Host Nation and let them know who you are and what inspired you to get into short-term rentals.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name's Tracey. I'm an Australian girl. I've been living in Japan for 21 years last week. I started off short-term rentals kind of by accident. It's a fairly familiar story for a lot of people. It was a need that I had for my family, that I had a baby and everyone wanted to come see my baby, not me. And in Tokyo, all the houses are really quite small. So I needed a second property and to put grandma and grandpa, because they wanted to come stay. And so I just rented a second apartment very close to where I live so that they could stay. And then I thought, well, if I rented it, 50% of the time, I've covered my costs, and then that's good. That's all that I was aiming to do. Well, it went bonkers, absolutely bonkers. So I started off with that small little apartment, and then it just went bananas. So, I thought, well, the entrepreneur in me just went, well, there's an opportunity here. There's a demand, and I can do the supply. So I just grew the business, and over the next 5 years, it grew to 24 listings. Just from us and our little team. It was a real ride.
Wow. And this episode I was really excited about because I was actually born in Japan. I think one of my lifelong dreams, even being in the U.S. and being raised here, but I've always wanted to like go back to Japan and just be able to live there. I love Tokyo. I've been there a few times now since I was first there, but I think it's kind of my dream to manage properties in Japan. Like, when I found out about this, I was like, man, I could go to Japan and then I could start this business. And you're living that lifestyle. So, but what were some of the first challenges that you faced when you started this business in Japan? Did you have a lot of experience? Did you know like how to speak Japanese at that time? Like, how do you transition to a new country, maybe that you're not familiar with, and then try to start a short-term rental hospitality business?
Sure. Well, I'd actually been here for 10 years at that point. So I've been here 21 years. And so I'd already been living here for a little while. My brother and I run a software company. So it's my brother and I are, I want to say we're entrepreneurs, but we're small business owners, and we do it for lifestyle. We do it because we like making our own decisions and being able to seize opportunities when they come up. And so to answer your question about speaking the language, I'd actually done Japanese throughout high school and university. So and I'd been to Japan a number of times. So coming to Japan was just sort of a natural progression. And I was only planning to come for 2 years. And then, 21 years later, I'm still here. But to get into the short-term rental industry, I'd always had a real interest in real estate. And, part of our business was that we would have a real estate company rent part of our office. They'd rent a desk in our office. And I was always really curious. I always, loved the way that real estate was done here, because it's all done by fax even today. But the floor plans, and I would look at the floor plans and, imagine how you would lay it out. So I've always had a real interest in setting up properties. And I was subleasing as well. So someone was needing an apartment, so I was doing a sublease. So as a furnished rental. And then when the whole, online travel agency thing, grew up, which was about 10 years ago now, I thought, well, this is a way for me to do a short-term rental. So what were the challenges? Getting the apartment, if you're not used to the way the Japanese system works, getting an apartment is unusual. And then getting an apartment that you were able to do a sublet with is also a bit of a rare unicorn. So I'd had a little bit of an experience with that. So I just transitioned that into a short-term rental. And I just loved it. It was just great to just meet all these people that were just coming in, and I was really servicing an inbound tourist market. And showing off the city that I'd adopted, and that was just such a fun time.
So you had that. You came into Japan. You already knew how to speak. You'd been there long enough. You knew the culture. You knew how things worked. But for gaijins like myself, for other people that are interested in maybe going to a foreign country that maybe speaking that language, reading that language isn't natural, but they love the country so much. They want to be able to start and grow their own short-term rental business in that country. Like, how would you even find out like the regulations and find out about like talking to the landlords? Like, in the US, you find out, what the state says, is there a ban on the state? Then you go down to the city, and then you go down to, the individual, municipality, and then you find the building or the property owner if you're going to be doing master lease, or then there's all these different taxes and regulations that you have to abide by. Like going, even in the US, it can be challenging for some people, but going to another country, I can't really even imagine. So how did you kind of go through that process and know that this is like a business that you can build?
I guess part of my personality is that I'm naturally curious, and I can talk to anybody. So when I'm interested in a subject, I start talking to people and I ask lots of questions, and to the point of getting annoying, actually. So so I'll really ask the questions, and when I find an obstacle, I'll just keep asking the question to find the way around it. But in the short-term rental, when I started, there were no regulations. There were no there was no rules, because it was really new. It was really new then, and a lot of landlords didn't know, and I didn't know, and I guess if I had to do it now, the first thing I would do would be get educated, find a mentorship program, or find some sort of watch a YouTube video, because there's so much great information out there that just wasn't there then. And just, again, do your due diligence, and be prepared to be adaptable when you come up against an obstacle, is to find out, well, what are the restrictions? What am I able to do? And then if there is an obstacle, okay, well, where is the path of least resistance, keeping on the legal side of it, of course. So that's always how I think people should learn whenever they're going into a new market or a new business, is have a goal in mind, but be nimble and be prepared to listen and to be adaptable when obstacles appear. Yeah.
So for, you said that back then they didn't really have much regulation, and that's probably going to be the case in maybe like a lot of, other countries that, in the US, this has really been growing and flourishing, lots of different regulations, lots of new taxations around this. But when you go to a country, let's say, a small town in Italy, or maybe, someplace in Europe, even Australia, all these different areas, or maybe it hasn't really boomed or really been matured enough where they have those types of regulations. So how do you, and right now I believe in Japan, or at least in Tokyo, from what I've seen, there are some regulations there now, especially. How did you be able to operate or know that you could keep on growing this business even today?
Yeah, it's really just, again, being on top of the information that's out there, and obviously the OTA is that should have the information, should be ahead of the game. It's late at night here. So, looking at the information that the online travel agency is providing, obviously, is the first port. And then looking around at other listings. So looking at the listings, and usually at the bottom of the listings, it'll have whether there's a license. So if there's a license number, you go, well, okay, there's a regulation. So then you can dig a little deeper and speak to the city, or go to the city office and find out who's monitoring that regulation, and then talking to people, asking the questions, and filling in the forms and dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Here in Japan, though, there's also a side business that's popped up. And these are paralegals. So I won't give you the name in Japanese, but these are people who do the conveyancing and the filling in all the legal documents. They're not actual lawyers, but they're paralegals, and they can do things like filling in forms, and there are some of these people that have set up businesses specifically to get the regulations. So I found one of those. And I shopped around, and I found one who I liked, and told them what my business was and what I wanted to achieve, and could they help me achieve it. And then I got a quote, and they did all the forms for me, because the documentation in Japanese was just a nightmare. It was a real pain, because the city, it was new for the city, it was new for the bureaucrats who worked there, and because there was a federal mandate that then was translated into the local governments, and then it was interpreted in different ways for the different city offices. So it was a bit of a minefield. I wouldn't sort of suggest to anyone try and do it on their own, especially in a language that's not your native language. So yeah, pay someone. Pay someone. It's money well spent.
And is that something as simple as, like, you can Google like paralegal in Japan or paralegal in Norway, Finland, wherever you want to be able to operate?
Yeah, I haven't looked at other countries, to be honest. But Yeah, like I said, the online travel agent, like the OTA, whether it's Airbnb or VRBO, they should have a good good handle on the local thing. Plus, there are some ambassadors that should have that sort of information that's all local at hand. So it's part of your due diligence. It's really just it's one of the least fun things about the short-term rental, but it's got to be done. So it's like the taxes and it's like the insurance and the safety things. It's just like, well, you just got to do it. You got to put your big girl panties on and do them.
So that first property that you picked up, did you purchase that property?
No, that was a rental. And I rented it. I knocked on the landlord's door and I said to them, this is my situation and I'm going to be having lots of family and friends come to visit. And made sure that it was going to be okay, that there were different people coming in and out, even though I was the one on the lease. I was not going to be actually staying in there. Didn't quite mention that I would be putting it on Airbnb or putting it on an OTA. And didn't mention that part of it, but I did mention that I wasn't going to be living there. And I don't have that property anymore. But I learnt from then that to make sure that I was completely above board with what I was planning to do with the property. And now that I know and I have a brand and I can show that I'm a great host and I'm really careful and I'm attentive and I'm going to be providing this amount of care and maintenance and I've got references from other landlords and so I've actually selling myself to the landlord as a going as someone who is doing the business as a professional, and to give them confidence that I'm going to be a smart bet for them. And also I pay above market rates. So that's always helpful. Or I do a profit share. So money talks.
How is that conversation or that how long is that maybe process when you maybe find a property? Let's say like you're trying to find a property. Are you like going through like in the US we have like this thing called Zillow or like we have different platforms where you can like find rentals. Is that how is that when you are in Japan? Is there like a website where you can just go through and just start calling up landlords, or you have to pound the pavement and walk the streets and call signs? Like how does that work?
You can. I don't recommend it. What I do is I've actually built relationships with real estate agents. So I've got a couple of friendly real estate agents who I know, they know what I do, and they are, they're talking to landlords on a daily basis. And one of the questions that they ask is when they're talking with landlords is, will you accept a short-term rental? I mean, so usually the questions are, do you accept foreigners? Because a lot of landlords don't even want to have a foreigner, don't want to have pets. Sometimes pets are okay, foreigners are not. Anyway, don't get me started on that. But so they'll be asking, is are foreigners okay? Are military okay? Because sometimes people don't want military. What, like, are children okay? Are animals okay? And then one of the other questions is short-term rentals okay? Because I've got a couple of real estate agents who know that I'm actively looking all the time, because these type of properties are not easy to find. But then I also do my own research. So I talk to landlord. So I've got a lot of co-hosting that I do. So that's working with owners who perhaps have bought a house and then they get transferred overseas, and then they still want to use the house when they come back to Tokyo. But in the meantime, I'll do a short-term rental on their property. So it's a relationship. So I've actually got a few people with the same company. It's a very large company, which I won't name the name of, but I'm on their intranet. So whenever someone is sort of saying, oh, look, I'm being transferred, what shall I do with my house, for example, someone will pop up and say, have you thought about this option? So that's when I'm getting other people to do my marketing for me. So that's either in the real estate or on the intranet at this large multinational corporation. So that's how I'm finding properties. But we're kind of at our limit right now anyway. We're at a really happy level with the number of staff, and obviously with the pandemic just driving me nuts. We're at a level that we're comfortable with, and with the staff levels and with the situation with travel right now. So, but when things change, then we'll be looking at actively ramping up again.
A couple things that I want to kind of go off of there. Maybe the first is, being a foreigner, trying to operate a short-term rental business, in, a country that's not your primary, your primary country. How do maybe the locals, feel about that or act? Like if you're, it's one thing, like you even said, like even just trying to rent a property from a landlord in Japan can be challenging if you're a foreigner, or if you have all, Japanese are very strict with how they like things, and to go outside of what the normal way that they're accustomed to can be, it's counter to what they would believe. So how can you as a foreigner, or how do landlords typically interact with you? Or I imagine that it'd be very challenging to maybe scale this business if you are utilizing like a master lease, or like you said, co-hosting, managing other people's properties. How do you go about that?
I'm just friendly. I'm friendly, and I'm open, and I'm transparent. And like I said, I have a brand, so I'm able to show people my track record of who I am targeting, which type of guest I'm targeting, and to make sure that the people in my community know that I'm bringing in quality guests, and that I'm going to be looking after them. I'm not going to be leaving them to their own devices. I see part of my job is giving guests the tools to succeed as well. So it's, the type of guests that I want to have stay are guests that are really interested in a local experience. And when you come and live in Japan as a local, there's a certain amount of community responsibility. So it's like things like you've got to sort your trash the right way, and you've got to make sure that things aren't loud at night, because Japan's a really quiet country. It's a really quiet country. People are very, very quiet and reserved. And, I make it very clear that my guests are going to be interested in that. They're curious about what it's like to live like a Japanese local, and I'm giving them the tools to also to assimilate and to fit in. And so I have that as part of my brand that I show landlords and my community. And I'm really friendly about it as well. I'm always smiling at the local shopkeepers, and I make sure that I show them how much business I'm bringing into the area. So I try to be a good, a good community member. So for example, when my guests come, I'll tell them my favorite restaurants around town, and often I'll go out to dinner with people, or I'll point, when I show them the village, I'll show them the individual restaurants that I love. And of course, the restaurant owner comes out and sees me and waves. And then, of course, when my guest comes and eats there the next day, for example, they're just deliriously happy. So, and of course, people talk. I do not try and slip under the radar. If anything, I walk loud and proud about that I'm bringing in curious and engaged visitors to show them the beauty of what life is like here. So I've tried to build up that reputation. It's taken a long time, but that's been the goal, and word gets around. The other thing I do is, like here in Tokyo, Tokyo's not one big city. Everyone thinks, oh, it's this massive sprawling city. It's actually thousands and thousands and thousands of villages all joined up together in and around a central hub. Like a central ring hub. So what I've done as well is that when I got my licenses, part of that is that I met my local community representative, and I went around and I took him some cookies and some tea and sat down with him and his wife, and they checked us out. We made sure that we knew how to say hello and do the nice things that you need to do in Japan. And so I let them check me out, and I let them see that I was an open book, and that I was trying to do good for the community. And when people see that you're trying and that you're making a good effort, then you get a lot of good response back. I think the people that have problems are the ones that try and sneak around, or they're ashamed of what they do. I mean, we do a great job in this business. We create memories. We help people see a different part of the world and experience life. And I mean, I get really passionate about this because I really do live and breathe it. But that's what I try and show to my community and also my guests. And I think that's infectious a little bit. The people that have problems are the ones that try and sneak around and try and do something like on the sly or the dodgy. And it's like, guys, there's a finite lot, like there's a limit to the size of business you can grow with that sort of attitude. So
for someone maybe that isn't, like a native speaker, like like you said, like you met with the local for that, area. And I saw that, your properties are located primarily like in the Shinjuku and Shibuya area. So when you're meeting with like the people that, these are like, community ambassadors or something like that.
Yeah, they're like the, like in Japanese, it's the tanto. So these are the people that organize the festivals, and they're usually volunteers. They're usually they're older folks. And they're community organizers, I guess. They're community organizers. The other thing I do is I pay them. So
you bribe them.
No. So like, because everything here is run around, is done around the festivals, which is organized by the temples. So the Buddhist and Shinto temples. And so I give a donation, which is tax deductible, because it's a community service. So that they organize the summer festivals, and where everyone runs around and bangs the drums, and summer festivals are so much fun here. But I give $10 a month, so it's really not a big thing. So my company donates that, and we get a receipt, and then that's tax deductible, and we get a little lantern at the shrine on festival days. So, like I said, I'm really embedded into this community. The other thing is I hire native speakers. That's the other thing. It's like, if I don't, I'm not a native speaker. I speak Japanese enough to get me into trouble, not enough to get me out, sadly. But so I hire people. Like I said, I hired someone to do the license. I hired someone to be my assistant and to do my translations. So outsource the crap out of that stuff. I mean, be the CEO, be the manager. You don't have to do all of the nitty gritty. Hire that stuff out. So.
How do the regulations work like in Japan? Like I saw that your properties are primarily located in like the Shibuya, Shinjuku area, but like you said, Tokyo is broken up of a lot smaller communities. How does that work? Is it like an HOA where each community has their own set of regulations, or is it like Tokyo wide? Like how does that work?
So there's a federal mandate which says that short-term rentals is allowed for 180 days unless you have a hotel license, which is then 365. So that's the federal mandate. And then it goes down to the individual city offices, and everything is zoned. So it's the same everywhere. So there'll be like a school zone, and there'll be a commercial zone, and there'll be a purely residential zone. So if the property that you're looking at is in a particular zone, so it's in a commercial zone, or it's on a main road, or it's in and around, like it depends on the zone. And if you go to the city office, they will have a big map, and it will give you color coded what zone is what, and then matching the zone up with how many days per year you can then rent. There are some zones, like school zones, you cannot have a short-term rental. If it's in a certain city zone, you can only do weekends. And then in every other place, it can be it's 180 days a year. And then there's a hotel license, which is 365. So again, it's so many layers of complexity there. That's why I hired somebody, because it just did my head in completely. So you need to have a registered management company. So what I've got in each individual house has a license, but then we also have an overarching management company as well. Because we were big enough, it would just made sense for us to get that additional piece of paper as well. And it just means that, we're responsible for each of the individual houses, And then each house needed to get a bit of retrofitting as well. So they needed to get some additional fire safety things and get a certificate from the fire station. So someone had to come and inspect, and it's all done by stamping, as you know. Everything's got a hunko. So you have to get stamped by a registered safety company. Those guys are making out like bandits right now because they can, there's only a couple of them, and they can, everyone wants to get their places certified. So they're just charging ridiculous amounts of money. So that is what it is. So you just have to pay for it, which was really interesting because in 2017, 2018, early 2018, there was no regulations. It was nuts here. And there was a lot of negligent hosts. So there was a lot of hosts that really thought, oh, this is free money, this is cheap money, and really weren't taking care of guests. And places were not well maintained, or really ghetto, or just not great. So we were getting a lot of guests who had been checked in to a place and it was filthy, or it wasn't what was advertised, and it was just like, nah. And so people checked out pretty quickly. So regulation was good because it weeded out a lot of those people who really weren't committed. And now there is a really good, group of committed hosts out there giving the best experiences they can. It's better for the whole industry.
Hey, this is Julian, and I wanted to be able to give you our newest book, Airbnb Secrets Revealed: How to Build a Fortune on Airbnb Without Owning Property. In this book, we talk about the concepts of rental arbitrage investing as well as co-hosting, and how you can build a business leveraging other people's properties. This book is perfect for the new short-term rental investor, and it's something that I wish that I had when I first started, as it would have saved me a lot of trouble and helped me to understand how to be able to leverage the power of short-term rental investing in your own real estate portfolio. If you'd like to get our newest book completely for free, go to shorttermsage.com/free book. Now, back to the show. So 180 days, even still, that is still pretty strict as far as, if you're trying to, operate full year. I mean, it's operating short term. So you basically have to do like a modified, 6 months out of the year, you probably have to rent like month to month, and try to have to market the properties like that. Why not get the hotel license and be able to operate 365?
We have a couple of those, and it depends on the like where you are. So some places you're not allowed to have a hotel license, and other places you need to have your office. So I'm sitting here in my office, which is also the store cupboard. It's very glamorous today. So and this is the registered office for the management company, and I have to be within a certain number of minutes transport to the hotel. So basically that means if there's a fire, if there's a problem, I've got to be able to get there within 20 minutes. Otherwise, and they do that by Google Maps, I think. But so if I try to register one of my properties as a hotel, and if I'm too far away, it'll be like, no, you need to actually have a registered office where someone will be. I don't think it's 24/7, but it was 24/7. They've changed. It's a bit of a moving target, but you have to be within a certain commute to the property. Yeah. And to get the hotel license.
So the farther out that you try to expand the business or the more properties, if it's outside of that geographical area of your main office, then you'd have to essentially get another office in that area, and that kind of opens you up there, and you have to have someone that's like on staff at the office during those specific times.
Technically, I mean, this is like, as you can see in my store cupboard, as I said, is actually my house. I live I live upstairs. So I am theoretically, I'm here all the time, or somebody is here all the time, but it's a house. It's just a matter of being able to check the boxes that the regulations provide. Once you've checked the boxes, it's pretty cool. You can, there doesn't have to be someone here 24 hours a day. So,
and as far as like paying taxes and stuff like that, is that all through your paralegal? Like, how do you know, like when the taxes are due, or what if they change? Like, how do you keep up to date with all that?
Again, I outsource that. So what I'll do is I just keep a record of what's come in and what's going out, and then my I just use a tax accountant. So it goes through. We have an LLC, the equivalent of an LLC, and again, we just pay the tax person to do that. Just means also, because the office is in my house, there's a certain amount of tax incentives as well. I can claim a certain amount of my private electricity and utilities and internet as part of the business expense. So there's a few good trade-offs you can do there. And I think that's the same pretty much all over the world. And it's just being a bit creative about how you set up your business and having good relationships with people who are smarter than you. So people who know more, people who know the laws. And for taxes, there's a sales tax here. And then there's sales taxes, which is on everything, VAT type of thing. And then there is taxes on profit, so business profits. So we try to obviously reduce the profits by getting as many expenses in as we can, as everybody else does, to minimize their tax burden.
Can you kind of walk through a typical deal? Because you said that you co-host, you master lease, and you also own. Can you walk through some of the numbers of these types of properties? How much they typically would rent for or for purchase, and then what are you typically able to see as a revenue from those?
Sure, I tend to work on a month to month, and I look at, each property is different depending on the size, of course, and also how much of my rent. So I start some of my places rented for under $1,000. I'm talking dollars because yen won't make much sense to people outside of Japan. So for the lowest price one I have is around about $1,000 a month. I try to get $1,000 a month for the rent, and then usually utilities and what have you, another, 300-ish. And so I try to get all of my costs covered in 7 days of rent. And then the additional costs, as in staffing and other sort of incidentals, to be covered by the first 10 to 15 days of rent. And then from 15 days to 30 days, so that's covering my costs. All of my costs is basically all profit then. So, obviously we're not renting 100% of the time. We're averaging at about, on a, non-COVID scenario, we're renting at about 85 to 95% occupancy. So that run rate's pretty good. So, we're clearing at about $2,000 per smaller property a month. Like that's profit. And then that's after everybody's paid. But the bigger properties, obviously, there's more profit in those, but it's the same amount of work. They're higher risk because, especially if it's a master lease, I've got to be able to guarantee that a higher rent. So the most expensive property we had was at $4,500 a month that I was paying out in rent. But then that was renting for $500-600 a night. Wow. Plus, cleaning and we also do a lot of vertical monetization options as well. So that means that, we've got the basic nightly rate, the ADR, but then we also have a price list of things that people can buy from us if they choose. So tours, babysitting, mid-stay cleaning. So we've really tried to tailor it to what people need when they come to our area, and how to give them give them the option of upselling. Would you like fries with that? That's the sort of, the thought process, and people can take it or not, take it or leave it.
So you're actually including like a tour option? Are you outsourcing that to like another partner, and like you get like some type of like affiliate type of commission?
It's a bit of column A and a bit of column B. So there are some that we do ourselves, and that would be things like, do you want a breakfast basket? Do you want us to go and fill your fridge full of food? That's something that I would get my team to do. And I have a price list for that. Things like the tours, we have good relation. I've made great relationships with some really good vendors, some food tour people, and some transport, like some ground transport people. So people that, you know, ferry people in from the airport. So I don't want to be schlepping out to the airport when there are people who that's all they do. And if I introduce my guests, then yes, they're going to give me a finder's fee for that. So on my website, I've got ticketing people. I have roaming SIM cards. Because that's what people. So I've figured out what people need when they come in, and I find a solution for that pain point, and then I make sure that I'm getting a commission from introducing that. So it's a win-win. So it's great because the guests get what they need. They're going to spend that money anyway. They might as well spend it with something that they know has been tested and will work for them. So I'm giving. So that's. They already know, like, and trust me. So they already, you know, feel comfortable with the things that I recommend because I'm a local and they're coming to stay with me for a reason. It's not just a bed, because my product isn't cheap accommodation. My product is a home away from home. It's a local experience and all that encompasses. So my local knowledge is really valuable. And so I put a price on it. Simple as that.
And how do you convey that? If you like, what is the breakup of your bookings? How much are you utilizing the OTAs versus direct booking?
Well, I obviously as many direct bookings as I can, and because I've been doing this for a long time, I've been capturing everyone has stayed with me. I've been capturing their emails for a long time, and I put those. And I have people in and get seasonal emails and seasonal offers, and, you know, introduce a friend offer. So I do a lot of that sort of digital marketing. Plus I have my own website where I have, again, affiliate arrangements with travel agencies or Facebook groups, or I try to really build relationships and to be able to have people who are my ideal client come and find us. And then once they've stayed with us, then of course they're part of our family and part of our customer base. And we try to nurture those people and give them good information. And so we're running at about 40-50%, about 50-50 it was. So on my own website, I've done a bunch of work on SEO and Facebook ads and promotions and giveaways to grow my own brand. And then of course the OTAs as well, because they've got just such a capturing power. They've got so many eyes on. It's all about branding. It's all about branding.
No. Yeah, I love your website name, Tokyo Family Stays. Like, if I was a family looking to go to Tokyo and I needed a place to stay, I'd probably be looking up like Tokyo Family, property, Airbnb, homes. And I'm sure that we'll end up finding your website just because it's a really good name. It's very direct to the point. Some people get really creative with their names, and it's good, but it might not be what people are looking for, and that's what I'd be looking for if I went there. But now I kind of also wanted to talk about the COVID. I mean, obviously, that's it's impacted the whole travel industry. And when you like you said, you're only allowed to short-term rent 6 months out of the year, which does put some type of strain. We didn't really talk about like how you adjust during that period. But how has COVID impacted your business? Have you seen a shift in the way that people are traveling, or is it still pretty on lockdown? Like, how have you been able to really survive if people haven't been able to come in and out? I'm dying to go to Japan. Like, I tried to go to Japan, and then they said like there's a 2-week lockdown. I can't go. Like, oh my goodness, like they're making this not easy for me to go there.
Yeah, it's really sad. Like, this time last year, I was sitting on my living room floor in the fetal position going, oh my God, what is happening? Because it was just every day there was just cancellation, and it was just horrendous. I can't tell you, because 2020 was was the Olympic year, was our whole business model for 5 years, our whole business plan was gearing up to 2020. And, January, it was all looking good. It was, we had all our properties singing. It was just looking great. And it's just such bad luck. We had to really pivot. We had to really, obviously after the shock wore off, it really was a trauma. And then, of course, you start to think there's actually real people getting sick and dying. And so, have to really take in, not just think about, oh, my God, my business, but look at the humanity of it all. So we really had to look at what properties were going to survive. So we shut a number of properties that we were going to close after the Olympics anyway. We closed them down early, and we handed back the keys early. And what we did was to answer your question before is, what do we do with 180 days? We also have relationships with people who do relocations, people that are bringing in corporate families who need a soft landing while they're getting themselves sorted while they're waiting for their furniture to arrive, for example. So we already had that relationship set up anyway, and we just obviously dialed that up a little bit more. So we're working with relocation companies to have families who are coming in for quarantine. Also Japanese families who are expats. So that Japanese families who might live in China or Indonesia and they got stuck here. They couldn't go anywhere because their companies weren't letting them travel. So we've been looking after them for most of the year. So longer term. So we obviously margins are down. We had to lay off some staff and really sort of look at which houses we would keep and just do the best we can like everybody else. So all inbound tourists, which was 90% of my business anyway, most of those inbound tourists just stopped. So I went completely to corporate. And then when the variant started hitting is when they actually shut down for inbound business visas. So if you've lived in Japan before, if you're Japanese or you've got a resident visa from before, you're allowed to come in and quarantine for 2 weeks. So I've been doing a lot of quarantine stays because you don't need to quarantine in a hotel. You can quarantine anywhere. So we've been doing a lot of quarantine stays. But new visas. So if you've even got a visa, a student visa, a work visa, a cultural visa, but you haven't actually entered Japan before, you couldn't come in, and you still can't. I think they're just about to open it next week. So there's a lineup of people who should have been transferred in. Their companies want them to come in, and they've got their visas. Everything's sorted, except the borders are closed. So that should be opening soon. And then that's the first opening up. And then they've just announced that the Olympics will not accept foreign spectators. So that's really sad for us. We've had to lick our wounds a little bit, but I think it just means that it'll be after the Olympics that the borders will open again for tourists, and there's so much pent-up demand. So people like yourself, you're going to be, your fingers are, your credit cards in your hand and your fingers are over the keyboard ready to plug it in to book your flight. There is thousands and thousands and millions of people like you all over the world who are at that point. So we're getting ready. We're getting ready. We just got to hang on, and get ready. So
I could keep on talking. I love Japan. I love short-term rentals. I love talking with you, Tracey. But we do have to wrap up here. But I want to be able to ask, what, you've been in this business. What would you do differently if you did have to start from scratch? Like, what would you give that advice to a less wise Tracey in the short-term rental space?
Get educated. Watch YouTube videos. Read blogs. Get educated. Find a mentor. That's what I would do differently. Because I learned I learned from the school of hard knocks. I made a ton of mistakes. Like I said, that first one I had, I didn't tell the landlord that I was actually putting it on an OTA. I would never do that now. So learning those things, learning how to really build a brand, and know who I'm serving, so know who my ideal guest is, and so that I can really set up my property and also set up my business, do all of my marketing to really speak to that particular guest, rather than just sort of, throwing it out to everybody and then scrambling because you're not really set up to look after the special needs of a particular guest segment. So yeah, really being very specific about who I was serving. Once I became Tokyo Family Stays, my business took off like a rocket because I was very clear on what product I was offering and who I was offering it to, and the guests knew what they were getting. So if there was backpackers coming in, they knew that they weren't going to be comfortable staying, or if it was a luxury people coming in, they knew that they weren't going to be comfortable staying with me. But a family, like you were saying, they know that I'm their people and they're my people. So that's what I would do differently, is really be very clear on who I'm serving.
And what advice would you give to someone that is looking to go to a foreign country? Maybe they love Japan or they love wherever else in the world, but they don't speak the language, but they know that they want to be there and they want to build a hospitality short-term rental business. What advice would you give to those people as well? Maybe there's not a mentor like yourself in Japan who knows the local, who knows the how things operate. But they're interested in going to somewhere else where maybe they just don't know anybody there, or who has that experience. What advice would you give to them?
Start small, think big, but start small, and then get to know the people in your community. Because I think short-term rental is all about local. It's all about giving local service. Well, this is from my point of view. It's all about bringing that local experience in. So start small, start local, and then just start widening your circle out that way, and outsource. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't think that you're the smartest person in the room, because you're not. Hire people that are smarter than you. Ask questions. Be curious. Be genuine. It's life skills anyway, really. But they're the sorts of things that I would suggest.
Do you think that this is really something like, you had businesses, you had that experience, you were in Japan for quite a while. Do you think that this is really something that people can do, maybe if they don't have that experience yet in managing properties, to go to a foreign country and build a short-term rental business? Or do you think that people should be operating locally, know how to run the business before even attempting to do it somewhere else, that they're unfamiliar with how things work?
There's always scope for collaborations. I think whenever another short-term rental host comes into town, I don't see them as competition. I see them as potential partnerships. So if you have that sort of attitude of like looking for a collaboration, and bring your skills and your zone of genius into a relationship, and look for people who can bring additional skills and different zones of geniuses into the field, then that's always going to win for everybody, and making sure that they're the right partners. So going into a new market, partner with someone who knows the area, see what you can offer them to find out what their pain points are, and meet those needs. That's always, that's good life advice as well.
And what's the best way, Tracey, if anybody wants to be able to get in touch with you? Maybe they're pent up like myself, and they want to go to Japan, and they want to be able to stay at your property because that's what fits their needs. What's the best way someone can get into contact with you?
I'm not a woman of mystery. I'm not a woman. You can find me anywhere, really. So Tokyo Family Stays, obviously, I'm the CEO there. It's not hard to find, just tokyofamilystays.com, and you can find me there. There's a mail there, but I've also got Instagram, and like I said, I'm not a woman of mystery. Just Google my name and you'll find like Tracey Short-Term Rentals Tokyo. You will find me.
Okay, awesome. Well, of course, we'll include all the links, be able to connect with Tracey, stay at some of her properties in the show notes of this episode. Thank you so much, Tracey, for taking the time. And until next time, Host Nation, keep on hosting.
Thank you. Great to talk to you.
Hope you hosts benefited from the show. If you found value, please go on over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let us know what you enjoy about the show. If you'd like to talk to hosts that have been featured in these episodes as well as the community, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation.